Welcome to the Pro Aging Podcast. I'm Steve Gurney, founder of the Positive Aging Community. We're excited that you can join us for our interactive discussions with pioneers and thought leaders on a wide variety of topics related to aging and longevity. Today, we're talking about aging life care with some of the leadership team of the Aging Life Care Association Mid-Atlantic chapter. You're going to learn how these professionals provide holistic, client-centered approach to caring for older adults and others. So let's jump into this engaging discussion. Two guests to the stage today, and that is Rebecca Roski-Brunner and Heather Surrey, who are both members and part of the leadership team of the Aging Life Care Mid-Atlantic chapter. And welcome, both of you. We're very excited to have Aging Life Care as our topic today.
Thanks, Steve.
And this is rather strategic because the Mid-Atlantic conference is coming up in November, which we're going to talk a little bit about, as well as we're putting together the membership directory that providers can participate in as well. But we figured this is a great way to get the word out about this great profession and some of the exciting things that the chapter has coming up. But before we dive into this, let's get to know the two of you a little bit better. Heather, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to become an Aging Life Care Manager.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve. I'm Heather Surrey. I am an Aging Life Care Manager, and I own a practice called Pathways in Aging, and we serve Northern Virginia and also the greater Seattle area. I've got an office out west now, too. I am also the Mid-Atlantic chapter president for Aging Life Care Association. I'm a nurse by training. I've been a nurse almost 25 years, and I became an Aging Life Care Manager because I cannot stay in my lane. I think a lot of us can relate to that in terms of how we come to this profession. I think in almost every nursing role I ever had, I saw all of these needs that were happening that were outside of the kind of the definition of my specific job duties. And I got to the place where I just really wanted to work with individuals and families much more holistically. And that's when I started my practice. What about you, Rebecca?
That's great. Yeah, Rebecca. And I have to compliment Rebecca. Believe it or not, that is not a virtual background that we're seeing. She is actually outside. And when I was like, oh, hey, cool virtual background, and she goes, no, I'm outside. I go, this is incredible. The lighting, the sound is perfect, and you're outside.
Thanks. I did it all myself, I guess. So a little bit about me, Rebecca Roski-Brunner. I work at Complete Care Strategies. I am currently the executive director. We are based in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, which is about half hour outside of Philadelphia. And we service all the counties around Philadelphia, South Jersey, and Northern Delaware. I have been a nurse for about 23 years. I worked in the emergency room for most of my nursing career. And then about 6 years ago, I decided that I wanted to move more into care management. I saw a lot of needs with the aging population in the emergency room, people not having family members going into the ER with them, or not having any family whatsoever, and nobody checking in on, my clients in the ER. So this is a passion for me. I love what I do. And I think it's the wave of the future because people need other people to help them.
I couldn't agree more. And I've been in this business now for 32 years and, grew up with the geriatric care manager, which is transitioned to the Aging Life Care Manager, much more age-centric language there, and it's been the wave of the future back then. It's the wave of the future back now, and in the immediate horizon, it's only getting better in terms of supporting families and individuals. So I I know we all take for granted in the profession. We know what rock stars you all are, but I know that there are people on this discussion today or listening to it later that don't really understand what an aging life care manager is. So let's dive into that for the first part, and then I'm really excited to give everybody a preview of one of the keynote that you're going to have at your conference here, and I'd like to talk about that as well.
Okay, sounds like a plan, Steve. Well, one kind of a bullet on aging life care management. So we are nationally, there's a couple of a thousand of us who are members of the Aging Life Care Association. Because we come from different professional backgrounds. About roughly half of us are nurses, half of us are social workers, and then we're seeing a lot of other people come into the work who have different health and human services backgrounds. But we don't have a unifying regulatory body like nurses do or like social workers do. So the Aging Life Care Association does that for us. In a sense, it provides standards of practice that we adhere to, a code of ethics, and a process for consumers to report concerns. So I think that's a really important thing for folks to know, that membership in the Aging Life Care Association is really what you want to look for when you are looking at your options and vetting care managers. Rebecca, you want to tell them a little bit about the scope of what we do?
Sure. So as aging life care managers, we generally start with getting to know a client, so an assessment, and then we can really delve into all the different facets of helping someone. Their medical history, if they have any medical needs or I have to go to doctor's appointments, things like that. We can help them at home if they want to age in place or if they want to transition to a community, be it a dementia, unit, if that's a need, or assisted living, or even independent living, so that they have it and they can move up if they need to. We hire people to come in the home, or help families hire people to come in the home to do housekeeping or home care. We do everything. We work with financial advisors and lawyers and estate planners so that we can make sure that the whole client is intact and that they are protected on all sides. So lots of different
working with families, working with entitlement programs. The Aging Life Care Association has a great graphic that shows kind of the 8 bodies of knowledge that we have competency in, that really is holistic and looks a little bit different for every family, which is part of the fun. It's very person-centered, creative work.
Yeah, and to that, I'm on the national chapter website, which I put into chat for everybody. But let's here, let me see if I can increase this a little bit so we can see that image here a little bit better. But those 8 areas are legal, crisis intervention, health and disability, financial, housing, family, local resources, and advocacy. And having been around so many aging life care managers, I can say that I've heard stories from clients and care managers on every one of these 8 elements. I would say one of the things that I always like to share when I explain what an aging life care manager is, I always give the example, which this happens to me once a week, where I get somebody who schedules a time on my calendar, which I'm open to all of y'all anytime you want. You just schedule time with me. I love brainstorming. And the challenge is, it's a brother and sister, and they're trying to figure out what's best for mom, okay? And a lot of times, I tell folks this, a lot of times it's not necessarily what's best for mom, it's what's best for them, when they're sharing their opinions. And usually I cut them off before they tell me the whole story, and I say, look, let me explain to you about this profession, because it's really important that you get an objective guide to help you map out a plan that's not in your best interest, but hopefully it will be, but it's in mom or dad's best interest. Do you find that that's a common type of case that your practices get?
Oh, yes. I mean, I think, I think just what you were saying, that sometimes the kids, adult children see the needs before the older adult sees the needs. And then it kind of becomes a discussion of understanding that a lot of times older adults have a very different personal calculation of risk than their adult kids. They have lived longer than us. They have survived things. And we really have to help families understand that there's this balance between what is safe and what is really appropriate for someone exercising their personal autonomy, and trying to get everybody comfortable. I think that one of the tricks, and I'm sure this is not just my trick, this is everybody's trick, but when we're working with an older adult who's resistant to change or resistant to care management, we get in there and you build the relationship and you figure out what's important to them. And maybe in the scope of things, it's not a priority problem, but if we can figure out how to give them a win, how to solve a pain point that they feel like is important, sometimes it helps get our foot in the door, and then we can tackle some of the bigger issues.
That's great. And, for years, we have been talking about ways that we can get people to plan in advance. I know one of the 8 things on your wheel is crisis intervention. And I would say that, 90% of the people that get this guide and reach out to those professionals in the audience, it's a crisis situation. I'm going on living my life, and then I have a fall, I'm in the hospital. It's like, whoa, I need all this stuff now, But one phenomena that's been out there that it's our most popular discussion topic here is solo aging, is that, and it's not just people who are solo agers now, it's folks starting to think about, hey, it's really probable that me and my spouse are not going to pass away on the same day at the same time, that one of us is going to be by ourselves. Let's start getting a plan in place for that. And I can't tell you how thrilled it is to hear folks starting to reach out to care managers to help map out a solo aging plan, or just have you all in backup. Are you seeing trends in that area?
I think with the boomer population, as they're growing, they are definitely more savvy, and they are reaching out earlier than their predecessors did. So yes, we have been seeing, the solo ager population has been retaining us a little bit early, just so we know them. So when a crisis does happen in the future, that they can just call us up and say, hey, I need whatever. I had one client that, she had no needs. She lives on her own. She's, capable of doing everything on her own, but a tree fell and blocked her street. She couldn't get her car out. They weren't going to be able to repair it. It was an ice storm for like 5 days. She didn't know how to call an Uber. So I called her an Uber. It's just even little things like that. Anywhere we can assist, we try to.
I love it. Yeah. And I'm glad you had an example like that, because I think, so many of the things that we need as we navigate through the chapters of life, they're not necessarily health related. They're how do I change the light bulb in my ceiling? I don't want to get up on that chair. Who do I call? And it might be bizarre, but an aging life care manager is, if you've got somebody who's advocating for you, it's sort of like, hey, who would I call to do this, or what have you? And so it's not all sort of health and wellness related. It's just lifestyle related.
It's life related. And, I always say that I think, one of the most important roles, probably our first most important role, is that of advocate, but the close second is team builder. It is our job to know all of the resources in the community, the big programs and those individuals who do that super specific stuff that we know are vetted, we know are trustworthy, and can really put together this team where all of the parts connect, because care for older adults services in general tend to be pretty fragmented. And so we need to kind of weave this plan together. And then our job is to just make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. And if we put the people in place that are the best at their jobs, then, then it's humming along, it's doing our thing. And then we step in if something else is needed. But now, that's one of the things I love the most is
I'm glad you brought up team. I'm glad you brought up team, and I'm going to throw this out early here. We're only 25 minutes into the hour, but I'm going to throw up cost, okay? Because I know we're going to talk about it sooner or later, might as well get it out of the way, but the cost of care management, the cost of what have you. But on a regular basis, I'm getting calls from folks, and they're sort of like, oh, mom and dad are on a fixed income, or dad's got a budget, or whatever. How do I navigate this expensive care, elder care world? Everything's so expensive. And I often counsel folks and I say, look, it's just kind of like taking care of your kids. Remember? I mean, you didn't pay for a babysitter all the time. You had friends, family, you tapped into the network. And elder care can be similar. And so when you all are managing a team, the team could be your staff, it could be outside organizations, but then it could be mom and dad's family and network, and the care manager is sort of the quarterback. Is that a fair representation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a fair representation. When I talk to clients all the time, I say we are the quarterback of care, or the professional family member. We help put everything into place, and then we keep the family updated and the other services updated about what needs are changing or what needs to be done going forward.
Oh. And I think, those cases where that cost sensitivity is present, and we are seeing more and more of that, because the costs of care, whether it's home care, whether it's senior living, we've got a huge labor shortage that we're dealing with. Costs are going up, gas prices are high, all of these things, we're seeing costs going up. And the people who are kind of in the middle, who aren't eligible for Medicaid services and things like that, are the ones that sometimes are really struggling. So it's our job as care managers to really kind of get creative. And sometimes it's it's tapping into the different nonprofit organizations. Every community has organizations that offer, again, sometimes really specific things. So sometimes we can weave those things together. Shepherd Center comes to mind for me in terms of medical transportation. So sometimes it's working with multiple different organizations to make it work. Another thing is coaching family members on how to ask for help. I think especially through the pandemic, we've been so used to our social isolation that nobody's talked to their neighbors, and everybody stopped going to church. And a lot of those social networks kind of fell apart. So it's helping caregivers, family caregivers, lay caregivers, know how to be specific and asking what they need, helping to give them some language, and reaching out. A lot of times that support is there, it's just hard to figure out how to access it.
I love it. And it looks like we've got Sonia and Stephen have their hands raised. Sometimes people do that by mistake, but Sonia and Stephen, if you've got a question, unmute yourself and feel free to ask your question. And while I'm waiting for that, like I said, I opened the door to cost. How do people pay for aging life care managers? And do you know sort of a price range guideline? I know every practice is a little bit different. We've got some nonprofit government practices as well.
Yeah. I mean, can't speak to everywhere. I'm most familiar with the Northern Virginia market, but I've seen prices around 150 to maybe 225 an hour for care management. There are some other every practice is a little bit different. So there's some flat fee offerings that they have. I offer a virtual consult that's a 1 hour, one-off. Maybe you'll never see me again, but it's great for like a DIY for the people who aren't going to do ongoing care management because it's not affordable, but just need to know, what are the priorities? How do I get done what I need to get done? So a lot of us are coming up with ways to really help those people in the middle. We also see some nonprofit organizations sometimes offering some additional assistance. Senior Living Foundation of the American Foreign Service here in Northern Virginia. Many of us know about that one. So for retired Foreign Service officers or the aging parents of active Foreign Service, there's some things available. The EAPs, are offering some. I mean, what else, Rebecca? What else we got out there?
They, like Catholic Charities, and then the Jewish Family Services also have different programs. So there are a lot of programs out there, and I'm hoping that there'll be more in the future.
Yeah, Seabury, we've got Seabury in DC.
Yeah, and ElderLink with Fairfax County. But whenever we bring up price with aging life care and elder law, and people hear this hourly rate, it's like, whoa, every single one of the if when you're reaching out to an elder law attorney or aging life care manager, if you let them know that, hey, look, I'm paying for this out of my pocket for my mom, I'm on a budget, the way that the care managers and the providers work within your budget is, hey, look, I'm just going to coach you. Okay. This is not going to be, and let's see how that works. And that's one thing I want to bring up, because I had a conversation the other day with some siblings who many years ago had tried an aging life care manager with one of their parents, and the parent resisted it. And as I was brainstorming with them, I said, I don't think it's time to introduce another aging life care manager to your mom. You can work with the aging life care manager as your coach. And then when it's appropriate, then perhaps the aging life care manager is introduced to mom. Do you see that?
Yeah,
in a lot of situations?
sometimes it's just the families who really need the assistance to help their mom or dad or whoever it may be, figure out the different resources they need or what are our next steps. So we definitely can do family coaching and things like that.
Or a family will have a budget, and we'll say, okay, so if you're kind of thinking 3 hours is kind of what you got, then let's figure out what are the things that are really going to bring the most value for me to do. And let's prioritize, and what things, how we can work it out. I mean, I know so many of my colleagues, we want to meet people where they are and work things out. I think the other thing to throw out there, and Rebecca, I think you would agree, is that, yes, sometimes that hourly rate can seem high, but we bring so much value, and we end up saving people a lot of money by making the right choices the first time. I can think, just like real quick, a quick story. I had a family that came to me after they had moved mom into an assisted living, a fantastic assisted living, not the right one for her. And within 4 days, they required them to bring in 24/7 private duty care. So they're paying assisted living. They've got private duty care on top of it. She's bleeding money like crazy. What she needed was a really tight caregiver to resident ratio. I moved them in probably within about 10 days into a residential licensed assisted living, an 8-bed assisted living with excellent care, saving them roughly $22,000 a month. I moved them in. The care was so good, they didn't need me anymore. They only had my services for 2 months, and my fees were captured in that savings just fractionally.
That's
So
a great
it
example.
really can
Yeah.
make a big difference.
And sometimes the clients just need us to help them get onto Medicaid and get their entitlements and help fill out all those forms, because those forms get complicated, especially if you aren't computer savvy, because most of it's on the computer, and apply for the different waiver programs and get those entitlements. So it is, once they have all of those things in place, and they don't necessarily need us anymore, and that's fine. I always say to my clients, my goal is for you not to need me in the future. That's what
it's a questionable business model, but that's how most of us operate.
Yeah. No, this is great. Okay. We've got some questions, but I definitely want to talk about this conference. But before we do, I see a few questions on how do I find a care manager. So I want to share with you all a few websites that you can jump on and find care managers. First, of course, since I'm running this, I got to give a plug to my website. And you can see, you just click resources, care management, and then you hit search. But the source for all care managers in the nation, no matter where you are, is aginglifecare.org. And up at the top of the screen, you click this Find an Aging Life Care Expert. And then you've got this robust search here. I'm going to come back to this in just a moment. I also want to spotlight the Mid-Atlantic chapter, which is midatlanticalca.org. And again, you can learn about the chapter and you can do a search there. But let's go back here, because there are some different levels of care managers. And I believe there's a certified another certifying body. But right here on the website, we've got advanced professional, professional, and associate. Can you share with me a little bit about those different levels of certification?
Yeah, absolutely. And really, it has to do with, when you apply for membership, they're looking at your education, what type of education you have and what level of education you have. And they're also looking at your professional care management experience. So for most part, a lot of people come in at that associate level. And then once you have a couple of years of care management experience, you rise to that professional level. The advanced professional level are those of us who have gone forward with becoming credentialed in this field. And there are some different paths to credentialing, but I think that, it really does demonstrate a commitment to our craft. It's a national certifying examination that you have to prepare for. I'm certified through NACM. It's offered twice a year. It's a little bit of a nail biter. It's not easy to get. So I think that, it's a great way to really identify who is very experienced, who has really committed to this profession. And then we'll see too, those, other members kind of coming up through, they're building their experience. Sometimes, kind of back to the price sensitivity piece, sometimes some of our folks who are just starting out in the profession, you got to start out someplace. Sometimes the hourly rate can be a little more competitive. So if that's something that is, a barrier for you to accessing care, they're still going to be able to help you. And that might be a way to look at cost as well.
Excellent. And we're getting I knew some questions were going to be rolling in here. So, first I want to address one of the let's do a couple, and then let's talk about the conference. Actually, let's talk about the conference and the speaker, and then we'll get back to the questions, folks. Rebecca, you are the conference chair for the this year's conference. And I am going to pull up the page on your website about that. But tell us a little bit about this conference and what one can expect and how providers can participate.
Sure. Yes. The conference is on our Aging Life Care Association webpage where you can register and everything like that. The conference has been in the works since 2019. I started planning, and then obviously the pandemic. So we halted. And then 2021, they wanted to do virtual. And I'm not I didn't want to do a virtual conference. I wanted it to be in person because we have Eloy Van Hall is our keynote speaker, and Eloy is one of the founders of Hokavik, or the Dementia Village in the Netherlands, which is a very unique community for people living with dementia. They have stores, they have movie theaters. Everyone that's in the community is either working there or living there. It's just such a unique way. Now, the Netherlands does have socialized medicine, so it is a different way of paying for, medical care and things like that. But I think having the freedom of being able to walk around and come out of your apartment and walk around outside and go to the store and all of those things is a great idea for our future in the US. Most of our dementia communities right now are locked units, or enclosed into a building. And this is more of a town where you can participate in lots of different things. There's a town center that has music, and they have fountains and multiple different things. So Eloy is flying over to do our conference, which is very exciting. And then we also have 4 other great speakers. We have an art therapist who works with dementia clients or those with cognitive decline. We have a functional medicine doctor. We have somebody going to be talking about technology and aging, and also somebody talking about LGBTQ plus and aging. So it's going to be an amazing conference. I'm really looking forward to it. And then we'll have lots of different, vendors and everything else.
Well, I tell you, I have never heard of the pioneer from the Netherlands coming here to speak in the U.S. So for all providers that are out there, this is a rare opportunity, whether you're an aging life care manager or not, but it's also, you can sort of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, network with a bunch of aging life care managers and hear this amazing keynote presentation. And I dropped the link to that village in chat. If you're not familiar with it, check it out. I think it's you talk about the future of helping with memory care. I hope that's what it looks like, because to me, it's just a brilliant design.
And what's so cool is that, Eloy is such a visionary, and we have lots of visionaries, here in the US too, but to see it come to fruition and be successful. This has been around some time. It isn't a new concept where it is there. So seeing that journey and where they have been since founding, Eloy does not come to the US all that often. Rebecca hustled hard to get this speaker. It was a couple of years worth of endeavor. And so it really is an amazing opportunity to see him speak. And I think, hanging out with aging life care managers for the rest of the day is the icing on the cake for sure.
I love it. All right. Well, good. Let's get back to some of these questions here, and I'll make sure to send links to all that. But okay, so Robert says, for veterans enrolled in VA healthcare, do private sector care managers coordinate with the Veterans Health Administration, social workers, or VA contract providers?
Yes, when we work with our clients, we are working with everyone and anyone who they can come in contact with. We can work with the VA, we can work with all the social workers, we work with case managers that are in the hospital. If they're in the hospital, we work with, anyone that comes into contact with that client that we can help. process.
And helping, get those benefits. Sometimes families just get really overwhelmed. It can be convoluted how to access veterans benefits, how to understand them. So, our teams, care managers, I don't know any care manager who doesn't help with that. And if it's something that is more complex or more time consuming, becomes too expensive for us to manage every part of it, again, we're back to the team building. We're going to get you connected with a local nonprofit organization, or sometimes the assistance at the state level for veterans affairs can be a little bit more accessible. Other things we do here in Northern Virginia, a lot of us will kind of get our VA people help out of Martinsburg, West Virginia, because it is just so much more accessible than going to the DC office, also in terms of sometimes their processes and organization. So yes, the answer is yes, we can help.
Great. And earlier in the conversation, we dropped the acronym EAP, which stands for Employee Assistance Program. And one thing that if you think your organization or your parents' organization, they may be a retiree and they can still take advantage of EAP benefits, by all means, check with HR, check with EAP, because over the years, I've known a lot of you to have arrangements with EAPs where a company is paying your fee for their employees. Is that correct?
It is. And it's usually not competitive, but I still try to do those when I can, because again, it's in alignment with a lot of our mission to do what we can for the folks who maybe couldn't access us any other way. A lot of times with the EAP, it's a kind of a structured assessment and recommendation, but it is in person, and that makes a big difference. And then we're able just to go spend that time, do that assessment, and just shower people with as many recommendations as we can. It makes a tremendous difference. And these plans now, especially for kind of sandwich generation people, most major employers have this benefit now, because it's us kind of Gen Xers especially that need it, because we've got aging parents and we've got younger kids, and we're pulled in a lot of directions. So those plans are there. It's worth asking about.
Yeah, so definitely it's a great resource that's out there through our employers. So and you might get lucky. Okay, so now we've got a question related to Medicaid and to rates. It's thanks for saying you can help apply for Medicaid. Can care managers also help process long-term care insurance claims? And I'm glad that question came up, because sometimes a long-term care insurance policy will actually pay for your fee, correct?
I've had success with this. Have you, Rebecca? Sometimes it's a little bit regional. Well, not regional, but just kind of knowing that this comes up on our listserv a lot, though, with care managers saying, how do you get reimbursed as a care manager?
We have a small home care component for us. So we process the claims for the long-term care insurance with our home care. We have not had success with processing it for care management.
So I have had a lot of success, and I am all about helping other care managers get successful with doing this, because it's an untapped resource. So, the benefit varies widely. Most people don't even remember that they have it, because they're focused on, either the home care or the assisted living piece. So it's really important to have your care manager really review that benefits page, so we can squeeze as much out of them as possible. A lot of times the companies want to have an LCSW or a gerontologist on staff. Sometimes that can be a requirement or a barrier. Other times, we're starting to see some changes in what they're asking, but it's usually a copy of your business license, you fill out their form, and then we can submit those paid invoices to try to get people reimbursed. We help people with paperwork all the time for long-term care. faxing it whatever 7 billion times until, they actually say that they got it. Kind of following that part through. I did want to just come back and touch on the Medicaid piece. There are some care managers. I have a care manager colleague who's a president in New Jersey, and his practice is almost exclusively helping people get on Medicaid. That's almost all he does. There are other care managers that are not comfortable helping complete those applications. So, with care managers, it's always a great idea. One, get a hold of the president of the area that you're in, because we kind of know what everybody's great at, and we can get you connected with somebody who's great at what they do. Also, it's great to talk to 2 or 3 care managers. Call us, interview us, find the one that feels like the right fit for you, that's going to be able to meet your unique needs, because we're all a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm glad you threw that out, because the next question is, I see paying a good hourly rate for initial consultations, but filling out forms to get proper benefits should be a lower rate per hour. I could probably argue that you might even flip that around, because sometimes filling out the forms is more difficult in knowing that process. But do companies have different rates for, this is our rate for the initial consultation, this is a paperwork rate, a faxing rate, what have you?
I would think most companies have. I can only speak for mine because I don't know how other people's rates are, but we have initial consultation and our assessment fees, and then we have an hourly rate. We don't differentiate other than those 2 things.
Yeah.
I have an office manager, and I do bill her time for certain things, but at a much lower rate than my time. So, for us now, before I had enough growth to support an office manager, I was doing a lot of that stuff myself. I don't have time for that anymore. And it's great. I love doing this kind of stuff instead of filling out John Hancock forms. So I have an office manager that does that. But these are the kind of questions you want to ask when you're working with a care manager, because it may be something that's important to you, or it might not. But it's just one data point, and we all we all structure our practices a little bit differently.
And then,
I'm sorry, Steve. Sometimes when you're filling out the forms, we know exactly what to say so that you can get the benefits and things like that. So we're not just filling them out like you would a regular application. There's different ways that you have to present something in order to be eligible for things.
And that's really an important point, Rebecca, because long-term care insurance companies, if there is one T uncrossed, everything shuts down. Like there's can be a lot of barriers to getting people reimbursed. So getting it right the first time gets you your money sooner.
And this probably ties into Diane's comment where she says, how does a long-term care insurance policy work if they don't need help with activities of daily living? So there's probably in some of these long-term care insurance contracts, it's like it requires support for specific things, and knowing how to fill that out and get reimbursed is really key, because a lot of the things that care managers do for a client might not necessarily be the elements that are reimbursable on the
right. 2 separate kind of categories of reimbursements. Not all long-term care policies have a care management benefit. Some do. And I've seen it between $500 and $2,000 a year is that's kind of the range that I've seen covered. When it comes to triggering long-term care, like eligibility for accessing that policy, usually it's one of 2 triggers. Either there is cognition that is impaired enough to need a certain level of supervision. So maybe you don't need help with personal care, but if your cognition is impaired enough that you need supervision, that might trigger eligibility. Or usually the other one is needing help in 2 or more ADLs. Now, how you personally might define needing help and how we know the industry defines needing help might be 2 different things. So that's why it's good to ask an expert.
Oh, that's great. Okay, I think I think I got through most of these questions and comments. The one thing that I would say to everybody in the audience, for example, Sonia is saying, um, I'm trying to network to gain resources on our aging population to meet social determinants of health in the Baltimore area. If you're, interact with the folks that are throwing out comments like that. Make sure to just take a glance at chat. And like I said, I'm going to also bring this. This will be go along with the recording, which will be posted later this afternoon. There's some good connections to be had in there in chat. Um, okay, so the a couple of things. Anybody can attend the conference, so you don't need to be an aging life care manager to attend the conference. You can attend the conference. I believe, there's maybe one sponsorship slot available, but there's more. There's exhibitor space still available, correct, Rebecca?
There is, yes, there is some exhibitor space available. Yep.
And then
and we're at the Bellevue in downtown Philadelphia, a beautiful historic hotel. And the way that it is, our kind of, because we're in the ballroom, right? For our speakers.
It's
Yeah, it's
beautiful.
gorgeous. But we actually have a lot of room for vendors. We have more room for vendors than we have in past venues. So whereas in 2019, we really had to stop taking applications. We ran out of room. We do have, they figured out a way to arrange things to add some additional slots. We haven't seen any of our partners in person in a couple of years. This is really, we're supposed to have a conference every other year. Now it's been 3. So we really would love for you to come and join us. You know how it is trying to get appointments with us. It is not easy because we're always working. The only thing care managers take time off for is to go to this conference. So it's, a great time to really be able to spend a little time, having a little bit more substantive conversation than we can sometimes just on these virtual networking types of venues.
yeah, so as providers out there, you can attend, you can sponsor, you can exhibit. The cool thing is we're doing another membership directory for you all, and as we've done in the past. And if you're an exhibitor or sponsor, you get a free ad in that. But if you can't make it and you want to be on the desk of every aging life care manager, and we mail it to elder law attorneys and other providers as well, you can be on their desk year round. You can just take out a placement separately in that membership directory. I'll make sure to follow up with everybody on that if you're interested in that.
And we want to meet new people. I mean, we've got great corporate partners under our ALCA umbrella. They're always a first stop for us. But we also, and all of you who are on this call today, who, there's a lot of change in the aging services landscape. We're seeing a lot of consolidation. We're seeing a lot of innovation and new things coming up. Sometimes, those of us who have been working with a certain partner or a certain company for years, we're seeing changes. Maybe they got bought by somebody else and it's not quite the same as it was. Or we're seeing, I'll give the example of home care. This labor shortage is impacting everybody. So that means we really, I have personally needed to kind of lengthen my short list of who I call to, really when we're looking for that needle in the haystack, we're looking for something really specific. So we're really interested in meeting some new folks, and we hope you'll join us.
Well, this is exciting news. So, I'm delighted that we had the opportunity to celebrate your profession, and it's so important. And I thank our audience for these great questions today. It's always fantastic. Any sort of closing words of wisdom?
I think I just want to say a big thank you to Rebecca. This conference I am so excited about it. I cannot wait to hear these speakers. It is, I think, one of the best conferences that we have ever done. And it's been a labor of love. Rebecca's got super high energy. She has worked so hard to bring these speakers, to make this work, to find the perfect venue, to bring it all together. It's a tremendous amount of work, and we're all going to benefit from it. So thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah.
It's going to be an amazing day. It's going to be good we're having that labor shortage, as you said. It's going to be interesting to hear what the technology is that's coming about, are there going to be robots taking care of people in the future? Who knows? Thank you, Steve, for having us. I really appreciate it.
You bet, folks. All right. We'll see you at the next discussion, and we'll see you up in Philadelphia.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.